I am so excited to have my friend Katrina here. Oh my God, me and Katrina, we go way back, you all. And I wanted her on my show because she has so much going on in her life. And she's such an amazing person. She brings so much joy to people. She always high spirited and always saying nice things to people. She is just a great person. And I like to have people like her on my show. I like to have people that are not only nice people, but wise people that bring wisdom, so that we can learn. So I asked her to be on my show and she came. And let me tell you all a quick little story about her and I. We could go years without seeing each other. And when we see each other, we are in Lane Bryant. We run into each other every time in Lane Bryant. It's just something about the store. We will be in it. And I'm like, hey, girl, I haven't seen you in about a year or two. And I'm like, yeah. And we pick right back on, in Lane Bryant. So you all, I am so excited to have her. So Katrina, please tell us some things. Tell us about yourself.
Well, I am married to one husband.
I like that.
I volunteer with several ministries, Heartsville of Grace, outreach programs, Metamorphosis. My husband and I are certified life coaches, and we also have a life coaching academy with certified life coaches. And I also work in the healthcare field, but I'm an implementation consultant. So I wear many hats. I'm in the ministry, but I'm also in the marketplace. So
I love that. I love that. I love when we as women, we have multiple hats and we can juggle it and we can do it all. And she does it so well with so much grace. And her husband, he is just a big old teddy bear, y'all. I just have to put Tabin in here. Listen, he is such a sweet person. She got a jewel. Listen, y'all, when women talk about, oh, I can't find a good man. No, they're out there because she has one of them. He is a really great guy. All right. So I know you listen to my podcast and because she'll call me, girl, I listened to that. I like that story. But I want to know what story resonated with you. What story did you find that you want to talk about today?
So there were a lot of good stories. Like I literally had to go in prayer mode. I was like, okay, God, which one am I going to pick? Because you got some great topics and they're easy to listen to, but I was led to finding the rest of my voice.
Oh, yes. And that is a story that I wrote, that happened to me recently. And I had to put it on my podcast because I'm like, oh my God. And it happened to me. This story is very relevant and is very current because it happened to me about 2 months ago or so. And basically, in essence, I'm always talking about me losing my voice and how I lost my voice and I got my voice back at 23. And, I went to God and I asked God to get my voice back. And then I had to go back down. Well, I realized about 2 months ago that I did not have my full voice back. And it surprised me. And what happened was it was at the end of a phone call. And I asked myself, why didn't you speak up? Why didn't you say what you needed to say? And that's when I realized that I didn't have my full voice around certain family members. It wasn't the world. It wasn't the workplace. It wasn't church and things like that. It was my family. And I just didn't have my voice when it came to them. And it took 3 conversations for me to regain my entire voice back. If you are someone who are struggling with losing your voice and, you got it back, but you don't have it all the way back, you need to listen to that story because in 3 different conversations, each time I was able to say what I needed to say. And each time it kind of like freed me. And then the next time it freed me a little bit more. And I could feel myself literally, regaining and getting it back. And I didn't say anything out of anger or hurt, but it was all out of love, but it was something that needed to be said and that I needed to say. It wasn't about the person. It was more so about me. And that was my way of getting my voice back. And so, yes, that is a great story for anyone who's struggling with their voice. You need to listen to that story. So, Katrina, with that said, what were your thoughts when you heard the story?
Some things that stood out for me, because my story is slightly different, but what stood out for me was when you said finding my voice for the love of myself.
Oh.
It's like when you find your full voice, it's about loving you, not just love. You know, we make a lot of emphasis on loving people, and we should love people. But sometimes I feel like we love people at the expense of loving ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there's anything wrong with loving people and loving yourself. I think it's necessary.
Yeah, and it is out of self-love, you know, because I was doing myself a disservice, making myself less than to make them feel better about themselves. And that's not self-love, you know. You're not showing yourself that you're worthy enough. You're showing the other person that I have to be small to make you big. No, you have to speak up. And that's what I had to learn through that. And I also had to learn how to do it, because it's when your family, when it's your family, you know, your siblings, you know, your mom, your dad, cousins, or anyone that's related to you, you want to be careful how you talk to them, because they're family, you know. And so I had to like, okay, Lord, help me to do this, but in a way that they can receive it without me being nasty, ugly, you know, going off or whatever. Help me do it in a positive way. And God, he helped me to do that very same thing. And what he showed me is that you can talk to anybody in your family and you can share what's on your heart, even if you don't agree with them. You can do it out of love. You can do it out of compassion and caring and forgiveness. So with that said, I know y'all, this is my passion right here, my voice and all that. So what were your like, did you find yourself in the story, or what did you were like, okay, when I hear, oh my God, did you literally found yourself? Do you have a story that's similar, or did you just find yourself in the story?
Well, for me, in listening to the story, really, you started this before the story for me.
I did.
Like before I heard this story, as she told you, we ran into each other in Lane Bryant, and she was just kind of like challenging me, just like she does with everyone else. Just know that this is who she is. She is always going to challenge you. And she was challenging me. She's like, there's more to you. There's more in you. And I thought I was doing good. Like, I'm successful. I'm serving in ministry. I'm married. I'm doing outreach. I feel like I've checked the boxes of everything that you should be doing, and I'm happy. I bring joy in every room.
She does.
But she's like, there's more, and I think that was a seed that she agitated the ground, and she sowed a seed. And God began to work on that seed, and He showed me that I did not have my full voice because I was not accepting the fullness of who I was. Because I was that person who shies back or who minimizes themselves in certain settings for the sake of others. And I was not giving my full voice. I wasn't giving my opinion. Not that I have to have my way, but I wasn't allowing my voice to be heard because I had suffered from rejection. And rejection spoke louder and made me feel like nobody wants to hear what I have to say. So I'll give you just enough, and the rest of it, I'm going to keep to myself because nobody wants to hear what I have to say. And so I've lived my life with my family that way. I've lived that life on the job. I've lived my life in ministry. Like every area of my life, I gave a part of my voice, but withheld my full voice. And after that session with you, I was sitting and talking to the Lord one day. People were challenging me about who I was. And it all started with that, knowing who you are and embracing and acknowledging who you are. And I was like, well, God, why is it so hard for me to accept who I am? And God said to me, He says, because you've allowed the spirit of rejection to speak louder than my voice concerning who you are. And I'm like, what? And He says, you cannot allow rejection to speak louder than my voice concerning your life. And I realized that rejection was the lens through which I saw anything. Like I wouldn't even tap in and start the race because I'm like, it's no use because they're not going to pick me to be on their team anyway. And the Lord's like, how about I make you a team? You know, it's kind of like one of those things where I'm like, no one's going to pick me. Someone's going to overlook me. They're not going to see what's in me. No one ever does. And he's like, but I see what's in you. You know, God says, I'm El Roi, the God who sees. And he sees us. And I think that I thank God for being in Lane Bryant. And what she hasn't told you is I don't live on that side of the water.
No,
so I just happen to end up there. I don't even go to Lane Bryant on a regular basis. But I promise you, every time I go into Lane Bryant, I run into Miss V. Okay. So with that said, she started something in me and agitated the ground. And God just began to water that. And then one day I realized I have to acknowledge and embrace not just the part of who I am, but all of who I am. And in doing that, acknowledge and embrace my full voice.
Well, you know, what she doesn't know is it bothered me. I could not let this girl go. I was in my car and I was driving, and sometimes, you know, I will go, well, Lord, was I wrong? You know, and I'm like, I don't feel like I'm wrong. It just bothered me because I'm like, God, you have so much more for her. It is so much more for her. And I just need her to get it. I don't know how, but I need her to get this. And I mean, and then I would pray for her, you know, and I'm like, I want her to get it. And when she called me and told me and shared with me, you know, some of her testimony, I could have did a cartwheel, and I'm a big girl. This body don't flip. This body don't do no cartwheel. So I just did the hand one, you know, when you act like you're doing a cartwheel, because I'm like, I am so good. But one of the things that you said, and I think is so important about the spirit of rejection and it being loud, but we also have to understand is what we say to ourselves is just loud. It's just as loud. So you're saying they're not going to pick me. I don't know, you know, and you told yourself, you said, oh, I'm happy. I have everything. And God is like, no, you don't. But you kept telling yourself that. So that's what you believe. And that's why it's so important what we tell ourselves. You know, what we tell ourselves is so important. You know, I tell God every day, your will. I need you every day because I cannot do this without you. And I had to change my dialogue to start saying that. But also changing your dialogue requires you to have your full voice because you need to know what to say to yourself. And by you finding it and getting your whole voice, I know now you are using your voice and you're just telling Katrina all kinds of, girl, yes, I'm going to do this. And God needs me to do that. Is that not true?
Listen. As you can see, I'm a little hoarse. I think I might be using it a little too much.
That's what happened when you get free, girl.
Listen, I think I need to be quiet because I almost don't have no voice, but I found my voice, my inner voice. And it's so interesting that now that I found my inner voice, my actual voice is hoarse.
But girl, you still use that voice because this is what happens. The enemy would come in and try to do whatever he can to try to take it away. You know, you're going to talk on this interview today. The blood of Jesus. Yeah, yes, that's right. And I'm over here with my bottle of water. I just did an interview and I'm like, no, this is what God wants to happen. God wants this to take place and it's going to, no matter what. But that's another thing you have to also understand when you get your voice back. The enemy is not happy. Because for all that time you were not talking, he was happy. He was like, I don't have to worry about her. I don't have to worry about her bringing somebody in. I don't have to do this on it. But as soon as you get it back, it's like, oh, because I remember when I was in the choir, I was at my current church. And I was trying out for the choir. In my previous church, I used to sing in the choir. So I was like, okay, that's what I'm supposed to do. And every time I went to rehearsal, they allow you to sit in on rehearsals and everything to see, you know, if it's something you want to do. Every time my voice was completely gone. Every time that I went. And then one time they just called me up and they was like, come on up, you know, just sit with the choir and see. I couldn't talk a lick. I was getting cough drops and everything. And I'm like, Lord, this is the third time that I have made an attempt. And God was like, that is not where you're supposed to be. I was like, oh, it's you this time. It wasn't the enemy. It was you every time. Hello. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, what do you want me to use my voice? What do you want? And he put me in a whole different ministry, a different place where he could start using me because he was like, okay, that season is gone. It's time for you to move on to do something else. And that's how God elevates us. We'll shut down one thing and he'll start something else with us. But in each one of those situations, my voice was vital. It was something that I had to do. And just like you, Katrina, you already have all that joy. You already have that bubbleness and all that stuff. You have that personality where people just draw to you. But now God is like, she got all that. Now she is going to bring it, because that spirit of rejection is gone, and she is going to tell the world. So let me ask you this question. If you were to run into someone like I ran into you, and you would have that sense of whatever, would you hold back, or would you go ahead and would you share with them? Would you use your full voice, or would you use your whole back voice?
I am growing and using my full voice. And I would say, when you make that step to start using your full voice, there's going to be a part of you that wants to revert back. Mm-hmm. And I have to tell myself, no, I will not go back to that place. I mean, I've like planned events. Recently, I was planning something and I was like, oh, what about this person? And how's this person going to feel? And I was like, trying to figure out what I was going to do. And the Lord was like, no, Katrina. Mm-mm. He said, that's not your concern. He said, your responsibility is to just invite the people. Don't worry about who coming, who not coming, and how that's going to look. And so I was like, you're right, Lord, but I have to remind myself of that, to not allow myself to get sucked into what people may think, but to do what God instructs me to do. Because like God said, I have to allow the voice of God, of what he's instructing me to do, to speak louder than that other voice that tells me, maybe you want to pull back. Because, God tells you to come a little higher. He don't be like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's what the Lord does. And so I know that
right there.
I see myself, even Lord, and the Lord has me, this is how he's training me. This is a funny part. So, because, I always overanalyze, and if you overanalyze long enough, you'll talk yourself out of it.
Yes.
So recently I was at a hotel and the Lord was like, put up the iron in the ironing board. Now, I never put up the ironing board once I've used it at a hotel, but I did it. So later on that day, I was like, God, why'd you make me put up the ironing board? That doesn't even make sense to me. And later on, he reminded me of the Karate Kid movie when he was asking to be trained. And he was like, wax on, wax off. And he went to the master. He was like, I'm ready to learn how to fight. Teach me how to fight. He says, I am teaching you. And the Lord said, I'm teaching you to do what I instruct you to do without analyzing why.
Oh my God. So
now it's not about the moment. Like, he's training me behind the scenes by being obedient to his voice in the things that make no sense. Like, he may tell me one day, I want you to wear this to church. And I'll be like, I don't want to wear that. And I'll be trying to come up with something else. But I'll be like, no, I'm going to be obedient to your voice. Because as I train myself to be obedient to the voice of God without understanding the why, it empowers me to use my full voice, because I trust what God says when he's speaking to me.
You know what's, I was about to write this down so I wouldn't forget it, but it's like God is training you, but in listening and doing what he says to do, but also with you is your self-dialogue. That has to change. You have to do your own. And I was just on interviewed on a podcast, and I was telling them about when I got my voice back, I had my own affirmations, and I believe in those, but I don't believe in other people's affirmation. I believe in my own. I make my own affirmations. I tell myself what I want to hear. And sometimes I add scriptures to it, and I mix the scriptures in, or I put my name where it says I or whatever. I put my name there and I tell myself that. And when you do it so long, you begin to believe it. It's no longer a struggle. It becomes natural. And like in your situation, you didn't have your full voice for so long. That little bit of person that's in there, the one that keeps you back, she's still there. The 6-year-old, she's still there, but it's a conscious show. I have talked myself out of her. If she comes up, I'm like, little girl, going back down there, girl, But then the other side of me, when I got my voice back, the cusser outer and the one that went off on people and all that, it's still over there. I'm like, oh, no, the blood of Jesus, God is, no. That was old. That is old. And I've taught myself so much now that that comes up out of me. My self-dialogue literally jumps in when it's something. And the more you do it, I'm telling you, it becomes a part of you. It cancels out the old, and the new just comes right on in.
So let me tell you how relevant what you just said is for me. This morning I woke up and I felt a little bit anxiety and fear trying to creep on for whatever the reason. And I felt it. I felt myself feeling uneasy. And I'm like half asleep, but I opened my mouth. I didn't say it in my mind. I said, spirit of fear, you have no place here.
That's right.
God's word says that he did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. So I cast you to a dry and desolate place. And you know what? It went away.
Yes.
And I was like, I used my voice. Like, I didn't entertain it. Like, what is it? Where did this come from? Why do I feel this way? I'm like, no, that's not God. So I'm using my voice and I opened my mouth. I'm in the bed. No one hears me, but I heard myself say it out loud. And I know the spirit heard me too. Yes. Because I'm learning not to sit in that place where I am debating with the thought or debating with the thing that's going to hinder me from speaking.
That's right. You know what? And something key that you just said is you heard yourself. And the more you hear yourself, the more you will receive what you're saying out of yourself. Absolutely. And you have to be careful. You have to speak positive things because a negative gets in as well. Yep. And I think God allows more of those moments to happen to you so that you can see this, you're going in the right direction. You're doing what you need to do for where I'm taking you. Because if we don't have those positive moments, then we go back to being the old person. And I mean, it's not like Satan gonna go away and say, you know what, I'm gonna just leave her alone because she got her full of what? No, that's not gonna happen. But we have to be cognizant and we have to be purposeful and saying, nope. Now, listen, just like you shut it down, you have to keep shutting it down. All right. So this is a part that I like. At the end of my podcast, I'm always sharing with you all my thoughts. And then I ask you questions and I ask all different kinds of questions. So Katrina and I are going to answer the questions that's at the end of the story. Okay. And the first question is this: if you have regained your voice, are there people that you don't speak up to still? Are there still people that kind of sort of that you want to, but you're not quite ready to speak up to them?
Right now, no. But what I do is I taper that with wisdom. Okay. So I talk to God because I'm like, okay, Lord, when you open the door or provide the opportunity, because sometimes it's a timing of when you say a thing. So I'm always asking God for the timing, and when he opens up the door, I'm going to say what has to be said, and I'm going to say it with love. No. But what God is doing for me is building up my confidence, because oftentimes I didn't want to say it because of how I felt it was going to be received, and now I'm just the mailman. The bill you got is on you. It's on you. I'm just going to do what the Lord told me to do. And even when it comes to, like, even at work, when I've had to deal with hard people, I've had to say, hey, listen, that's not how we talk to people. Or I challenge you to do better in this area. You can do it in love, but still tell people. Because I feel like that's what happens. We don't correct people, or we don't say how they made us feel so that they can look within themselves. To see, I know my struggle was rejection, but there's something going on in your heart that you mean, So,
yeah, absolutely. Yes. Listen, y'all, she just stole my answer, because my answer is very similar to what she just said. I am the same way, and I don't look at it now as being fearful. I think, like you said, it's a time for everything. And if I don't feel like that I'm going to say what I need to say out of love and it's coming out of anger or whatever, I make a decision to wait. But I'm going to say it. It may not be at that moment. It may be to give me a chance to maybe go to the bathroom and pray about, Lord, season my words, help me. But I need to let this person know how I feel. And I think oftentimes there are a lot of people that's walking around, bullies, people that's mean people, like you just said, because nobody confronts them. Nobody tells them that is wrong. And real quick, I remember I was staying with my auntie when I was buying my house, and she let me stay with her. And there was a man in her neighborhood who played the music loud every Saturday morning. Boom, 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 7 o'clock in the morning, because he would wash his car. And I said something to my aunt about it. She was like, "Oh no, baby, don't say anything. I don't want to make any waves. I live in this neighborhood. You don't." And I said, "Aunt, he probably doesn't know because he's young. And sometimes we need to help the younger people know because they don't know that it's inappropriate. They don't know. And if you don't tell them, they don't do better. And then they turn into worse people. And so it doesn't matter who it is, whether it's a child or anyone, sometimes you need to say something, but make sure you're saying it, just like you said, out of love, out of compassion, out of correction in a positive way. And, if you look at it like, I'm going to help this person, but let me help them in the correct way so that they will receive it.
Absolutely, because I just think about if they continue to act that way, there's somebody else's voice that they could be robbing.
Yes.
And if I don't speak up, there's somebody else could be silenced and is going to wrestle with what I wrestle with because no one corrected that behavior.
Yes. All right. So the second question is, how important is it to you to have your full voice without holding back your words just to save someone else's feelings?
Listen, I watched this movie once. In the movie, the man was a criminal. They knew he was a criminal. The guy had got away, and he knew the man was a criminal. And the man comes in, and he sees the guy getting away. He says, "Come on in. Come back in and have a drink." And the guy, he's hesitant, but he doesn't want to offend the criminal. So he comes in, the criminal knocks him out in the head. Next thing you know, the guy wakes up, and the criminal says, "It amazes me how people put themselves in bondage for fear of offense."
Oh, Lord.
So I realized that when I don't use my full voice, like that man that got hit in the head, I would put myself in bondage for fear of offense. Yes. And so I don't want to be in bondage. I want to walk in the full freedom that God has given us. The word says, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. So there is freedom that we have to walk in. And so when I deny myself my full voice, I deny myself my God-given freedom.
Yes, absolutely. Where for me, it's more, and it is very important to me. It's important for my mental health.
Yes.
It is so important for my mental health. It is just for my personal well-being, because I am an introvert, which most people don't know, but I am too, I am. But when I'm working for the Lord, I'm out. But I went through so many years of having stomach issues and all that because I internalized everything. Yes. And I kept everything in. Yes. And I was having all kinds of stomach issues and problems and everything. And that's because I held everything in. I took things personally and I put everybody before myself, their feelings, all of their thoughts and everything before myself. And I'm like, no, God has given me my voice back. And now, it's so freeing for me. And it's so much healthier that I'm getting it out of me and I'm not pushing it down anymore. And it's not that I don't care about people, but it's not so much as important to them how they feel or whatever, because they have to deal with their feelings. Right. As long as I know I came to them in a positive way, as long as I came out of love or whatever, have a way to receive, it's on them, because I know what I did, and I know how I did it.
Well, when you say that, I used to internalize like you. Mm-hmm. And I remember I had gone through this thing where I would break out in blisters on my hands and over my body. Yeah. I went to all kinds of doctors and allergists, and no one could tell me what the cause of it was. And they had to give me like steroids to cortisone shots just for it to go down. But I remember God saying, you're internalizing your feelings. And so we just don't realize there's stuff that goes on in our bodies because we are not using our full voice.
Yeah. And it's also a form of stress, inflammation in our bodies, because we're internalizing. You got to listen, y'all, let that stuff out. Don't you let people put you in a grave, because they're going to walk over your grave and keep right on moving. Absolutely. Open your mouth and say what you need to say, but make sure you do some praying first. Make sure it comes across the right way, but be free. Do not allow yourself to be in bondage and hold back. Katrina, this has been such a joy. I told you, I knew she was going to bring it. You know, I knew she had to be in the podcast because we ran into each other at the Lane Bryant. So God is like, this is for a reason and for a purpose, you know. And I thank you so much for being here. Now, I know you are a co-author for a book, and you also have some other things that's going on in your world. So please share with us that, and you know, how we can get in touch with you, you know, if we want to reach out to you.
Well, my Facebook handle is Katrina Walker-Garrett. So it's my maiden name and my married name, only on Facebook because my husband would not allow me to be hyphenated. Amen, somebody. So with that, also, I am a part of a group called Cardio Conversations. Mm-hmm. We have healthy discussions where we're exercising. So we're working out our physical heart and our spiritual heart in a healthy way, talking about the things of God. And we have written a book. It's a prayer journal called The Blueprint to a Healthier You. And it's a prayer journal, 52 weeks for you to read. So if anyone's interested in purchasing that, it's a great book. We've gotten feedback from different people who have purchased the book, and everyone's saying how much it's blessing them. That's on www.cardioconversation, no S at the end of conversation.com. So that's www.cardioconversation.com. And my husband and I, again, we have a New Mind Coaching Academy where we train certified life coaches, as well as we do our golden gems with the Garretts. So we do little nuggets about marriages to encourage healthy marriages. And at times we do marriage counseling. So we have it's a lot of things that we do. Yeah. So reach out to me, inbox me on Facebook, purchase the book on www.cardioconversation.com. Also, Cardio Conversation, we have a playlist on Spotify. So it's a lot of different songs. It's called In Its Presence. So it's Cardio Conversation, and it's called In Its Presence. And then we have a workout playlist. So we have 2 playlists on Spotify. So check it out.
Yeah, I will make sure I have all this information in the description. So if you didn't catch everything, you can just look in the description and you'll be able to contact and reach out to her. And you all get the book, and support her, because she has been amazing. Have you not learned? If you didn't learn anything, you didn't get anything, I need you to go back and replay it again, because there's some nuggets in here that we all need to hear. Oh my God. I told you all she was going to bring it, and I am so happy that she is here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for taking the time to listen. I pray that this episode will make you think about your childhood memories and how they have impacted your life. If you like what you hear, please follow me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. You can email me at valallisonelliott@gmail.com, or you can visit my website, and that is missvthestoryteller.godaddysites.com. And you can look up and find out everything that's going on, you guys. All right, friends, thanks for listening. Bye.